Hey, good morning, everybody. Jim Hoffman here, pastor at St. John's United Methodist Church. Good morning on this beautiful Saturday. It's time for our daily devotion, so I want to invite you to come with me. Let's spend a little bit of time together in devotion today. Leave a quick comment as you join our Facebook Live event. Would remind you, if you watch us a little bit later on, leave a quick comment as well, so I know you were here today. I appreciate when you do that. It's a lovely Saturday. I hope you're getting things accomplished that you want to get accomplished, because I'm not. I'm doing other things. The things that I want to do, I don't do, and the things that I don't want to do, I have to do. Sounds kind of like something Paul would say. Hi, Linda. Good morning to you. We're going to be reading out of Isaiah chapter 61 today, so you might want to find that, Isaiah 61. Hello, Shirley. Good morning to you. Hi, Mr. Dunbar. Good morning to you. Glad you're here. Isaiah 61, verses 1 to 6. Hi, David. Good morning to you. Glad you're here today. Isaiah 61, verses 1 to 6. Good morning, Mr. Longmire. Isaiah 61. Prophet Isaiah 61, verses 1 to 6. All right, here's our prayer. O God, by your spoken word, you created everything that is. By your incarnate word, you redeemed us. By your comforting word, you are with us still. So prepare us now to hear your word to us today. Isaiah 61. The Spirit of the Sovereign Lord is upon me, for the Lord has anointed me to bring good news to the poor. He has sent me to comfort the brokenhearted and to proclaim that captives will be released and prisoners will be freed. He has sent me to tell those who mourn that the time of the Lord's favor has come, and with it, the day of God's anger against their enemies. To all who mourn in Israel, he will give a crown of beauty for ashes, a joyous blessing instead of mourning, festive praise instead of despair. In their righteousness they will be like great oaks that the Lord has planted for his own glory. They will rebuild the ancient ruins, repairing cities destroyed long ago. They will revive them, though they have been deserted for many generations. Foreigners will be your servants. They will feed your flocks and plow your fields and tend your vineyards. You will be called priests of the Lord, ministers of our God. You will feed on the treasures of the nations and boast in their riches. Our devotion writer today is Laverne Williams from Georgia. Her focus verse is verses 1 and 3. The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, to appoint unto them that mourn in Zion, to give unto them beauty for ashes, the oil of joy for mourning, the garment of praise for the spirit of heaviness, that they may be called trees of righteousness, the planting of the Lord, that he may be glorified. It's actually the King James Version. Here's Laverne's devotion that she offers for us today. As our bus traveled down the highway on a recent trip to Alaska, we passed a large stretch of land with rows of burned trees. Growing directly in front of these black scorched trees were several clumps of beautiful little pink flowers. I noticed the same flowers when we hiked up a mountain trail in the damp wilderness. Later, our tour guide explained that the flowers were called fireweeds and that they usually grow in places where something catastrophic has occurred, like a fire or even a moving glacier. In a similar manner, God has a way of responding in areas of our lives where we've experienced disaster. Just like the prophet Isaiah said, God can provide beauty in places that once were ashes and cause joy in times of mourning. And as God was with Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in the fiery furnace, see Daniel chapter 3, God is with us through the fires we face. As we face struggles of every kind, our human limitations may prevent us from seeing through to the other side where beauty may await us. But God sees it all, is with us through it all, and is able to comfort all who mourn. Several years ago, Margaret and I were in St. George, Utah. She was there for what was called the Intermountain Farmers Association's show that was there. And so we were at kind of their convention center. We were there for a few extra days, and so we did a little bit of sightseeing, saw Bryce and Zion and different things like that, saw an old ghost town, mining ghost town. One day, though, we decided to trek across Utah down into the northern part of Arizona, and you go across the Indian Reservation and you find yourself on the north rim of the Grand Canyon. And as we're going through the forested area on the north rim, a fire had been through there, and you could just see the devastation all through there for miles and miles and miles of all of the woods that had been burned out by the fire. I've been other places at St. George. While we were there, they had fires on the other side of the mountain, and it was so hot and so windy. The smoke was blowing, and our air conditioning unit in our little hotel that we were staying in was sucking in some of that, and so we had to shut our air conditioning off. Which, I mean, it's still 90 something at night in the middle of the night, and you buy this little fan that you got, we were trying to figure out how to blow some air on us because it was just miserable to try to sleep. But you just think about how fire can destroy some things. And even though we see it, and we see the aftermath of it, we typically lose kind of sight of that, and we move beyond those things rather quickly. And we don't get to necessarily always see what happens after the fire. And we're talking months and years after the fire, and how renewal and rebirth and regrowth happens. If I went back to that area today on the north part of the Grand Canyon, I would imagine I might still see some of those burned out kind of hollow pieces of tree, but I bet I would also see all kinds of undergrowth and probably even new trees that were sprouting up in that area to take place of the ones that were burned. Nature has that kind of way of renewal, has that way of recreation and newness coming out even after some things have transpired. For most of us, we all know the old saying that hindsight is 20/20. When we get a chance to look back over the landscape of something that has transpired weeks, months, years before, we get a chance to look back on that. We can usually see, yes, the devastation because we remember it vividly, but we also might see some of the renewal and the growth that has transpired, some of that newness that has come out of it. That in the middle of these kinds of things, God doesn't leave us devastated by them, but rather we learn things, we grow, we get a chance to transform, we get a chance to be a new person, think differently, act differently, to be a person who maybe looks at the world through a different kind of lens that's maybe a little bit more loving and a little bit more empathetic as well, because some of these things smooth out some of the rough edges of our lives. I want you to take a moment, maybe pause and think back over something that in your life at the time was a fire. It was traumatic for you. And maybe see if you can't just get a glimpse of how God was present in that. Some of the things that you might have learned from that experience, some of the ways in which it's caused you to grow or maybe be more empathetic to others, and see how God hasn't brought newness to your situation. Because as her thought for the day says, God can bring beauty from even the bleakest of situations. And I think that may be true for many of us, if not all of us. So take a moment, if you would, please. Just think about that. Look back over your life, look back over the circumstances of it, and maybe see in some of those moments where we thought a fire devastated us, that maybe we also have experienced something good out of it as well. Let's take a moment to pause and pray. So gracious God, we thank you for walking with us in the midst of our trials. For the newness that you can bring, we seek it in our hearts and our lives. For the renewal, for the comfort, for the growth. Teach us, O Lord, through some of these things, that you are with us always and that you have goodness in mind. Amen. Well, thanks, friends, for being here today. Chris and Barbara Mueller, glad you made it this morning. Great to see you. Hi, Shelley. Glad you made it today as well. I hope all is well with your daughter and son-in-law and family. I look forward to seeing all of you tomorrow, hopefully for worship. Come and join me if you would, please, either in person or online. We'd love to have you. And then we'll be back with our devotion times on Monday, so come and join us then. God's rich grace and peace be with you, friends, and I'll look forward to seeing you for worship tomorrow and devotions on Monday. Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your Saturday.